here's our review for your trig test. We're going to start by trying to find the measure of angles of our triangle. So here we have angle A. I'm giving the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse is 4 over 11, and it's inverse cosine. Remember, whenever you're trying to find the measure of an angle, it's inverse cosine. Okay, so adjacent over hypotenuse. For angle B, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So that means 4 over 11 again. 4 now being the opposite side, 11 staying the hypotenuse, so it's inverse sine of 4 over 11. And that's what we're putting into the calculator. For angle A, in the second triangle, we're not given a hypotenuse, so we're using tangent. Angle A, it's opposite over adjacent, 7 over 6. And for angle B, it's opposite over adjacent, that becomes 6 over 7. Okay. On the bottom here, angle A, 15 is opposite it, so opposite over hypotenuse, that's why it's sine, opposite over hypotenuse. And then adjacent to angle B is 15, hypotenuse is 19. Okay, so we have our sine, opposite over hypotenuse, and then our cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. And now I'm going to put them into the calculator. So we go to our Desmos calculator, and I'm going to use, once again, I got to make sure I'm in degrees. I'm in degrees. Good. Okay. And now I'm going inverse sine 4 over 11. Inverse cosine 4 over 11. And I'm getting 68.68 and 21.32. The sine of 4 over 11 was 21.32. So I'll put 21.32 with the sine angle. And 68.68 is the cosine angle. When we do tangent, once again, I'm going to come down here. Inverse tangent, 7 divided by 6. Inverse tangent, 6 divided by 7. And we get 49.40. And we get 40.60. And then finally, for my bottom one, we're going to be doing 15 divided by 19. So we start with inverse sine, 15 divided by 19. And then we end up with inverse cosine, to get my other angle, 15 divided by 19. And we get angles of 52.14 and 37.86. So 52.14, 37.86. Remember, when you're trying to find the measure of an angle, it's always inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent. Now, when you're trying to find the measure of a side, now we're just using sine, cosine, tangent. We're not using inverse of anything. So we'll start with this one. The sine of 37 is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. And the tangent of 37 is the opposite side over the adjacent side, which is right here. We're going to multiply both sides by y. Y times the sine of 37 equals 9. And then my answer is literally y equals 9 divided by the sine of 37. For tangent, we're going to multiply both sides by x. We're going to get x times the tangent of 37 equals 9. And x equals 9 divided by the tangent of 37. And that's literally what we're going to put into our calculator. 9 divided by the sine of 37, 9 divided by the tangent of 37. And that will give me my two sides. So as I get rid of these, because I've already done them, and then I can show you a quick way to check your work here. With angles, you can just add them up and make sure they equal 90 degrees, the two angles you find. With sides, we use Pythagorean theorem. But I start with 9 divided by the sine of 37 and 9 divided by the tangent of 37. So 9 divided by the sine of 37 and 9 divided by the tangent of 37. Oops. There we go. And if I want to check my work, I can do 11.94 squared plus 9 squared, which is 81. And now I'll check that answer. 223.5636, and I end up with 14.95. Same thing I get up here. So I know when I'm done that I'm correct with 11.94 and 14.95. This is 11.94, and this is 14.95. So when you're done, you can definitely figure out or check your own work. Here, I'm going to use tangent again. The tangent, I'll put it down here, the tangent of 51 is equal to 13 over x. We're going to multiply both sides by x. The tangent of 51 equals 13, and my x equals 13 over the tangent of 51. For my y, we're going to use sine because we have an opposite side. The sine of 51 equals 13 over y. We're going to multiply y on both sides. This y times the sine of 51 equals 13, and y equals 13 divided by the sine of 51. And once again, we're going to go right to our calculator. I'm going to do these a little quicker. Instead of saving to the end, I'm going to do the calculator as we go. Okay, we have 13 divided by the sine. Once again, we're not using inverse sine, we're using sine of 51. And then I'm going to do 13 divided by the tangent of 51. And my two answers are going to be 16.73 and 10.53. So 16.73, and this right here is going to be 10.53. Okay. And once again, if you wanted to, you could use the Pythagorean theorem to check your work. As I come down here, obviously a little more work with finding sides and finding angles. As I come down here, okay, I'm going to use the tangent of 62 is equal to 17 over x. So I'm going to multiply both sides by x. We're going to get x times the tangent of 62 equals 17, and my x equals 17 over the tangent of 62. For my y, I'm going to use sine, opposite over hypotenuse. The sine of 62 equals 17 over y. We're going to multiply both sides by y, so the y sine of 62 equals 17, and y equals 17 times this, divided by the sine of 62. Okay, and we'll come into our calculator here, and we will go from there. So, if I go to my calculator, we have, sorry about that, we have 17 divided by the tangent of 62. So 17 divided by the tangent of 62. And I'm also going to get 17 divided by the sine of 62. Just simply following along the trig functions, we get 9.04 and 19.25. So we end up with 9.04 and I believe it was 19.25 as our two answers here. And I probably should circle the ones up here as well so you know where they're at. 10.53, 16.73. Alright, over here. Now with tangent's going to be a little easier on this one. Is the tangent of 19 is equal to x over 22. Okay, the opposite side is what we're trying to find. So we literally just multiply both sides by 22. And my answer is 22 times the tangent of 19, and that's what equals x. y, I gotta use cosine. Adjacent side of cosine of 19 is 22 over y. We're going to multiply y on both sides, and we're going to get y times the cosine of 19 equals 22, and my y equals 22 over the cosine of 19. And we're going to plug those two into our calculator. So we go to our calculator here. 22 times the tangent 19 makes for a simpler problem. And then finally, 22 divided by the cosine of 19, and that's 23.26. So we get 7.58, 23.27. So 7.58. My x is 7.58, and my hypotenuse is going to be 23.27. Hypotenuse 23.27 when I plug into my calculator. The bottom ones are probably the easiest in terms of I'm giving you a hypotenuse. So in this case, the cosine of 67 equals x over 15, and it's simply 15 times the cosine of 67 equals x. For y, it's the opposite side, so sine of 67 equals y over 15, and 15 times the sine of 67 equals y. So those are pretty straightforward, and I'll put them right into my calculator. 15 times the cosine of, I believe it was 67, but let me make sure. Yep, 67. And we get 5.86. And then 15 times the sine of 67. And we get 13.81. So 5.86, 13.81. My x is 5.86. My y is 13.81. And our final one, the sine of 74 equals x over 20. So 20 times the sine of 74 equals x. And the cosine of 74 equals y over 20. And 20 times the cosine of 74 equals y. And I'll finish off by putting that into my calculator. So we have 20 times the sine of 74, and we have 20 times the cosine of 74, and we end up with 19.23 and 5.51. 19.23 and 5.51. If you want one last check on it, I'll show you the check one more time because we have the time to do it. 19.23 squared plus 5.51 squared. And if you were taking the square root of 400.153, you'd get 20.00, and that hypotenuse is 20. So there's a real good chance you did it right. All right, guys, that is your test.